Hey, welcome to This Explainer. I've got to tell you, I am absolutely thrilled to walk you through today's material because, frankly, we're looking at something that is literally a game changer. We're going to break down exactly how you can turn a single 1 acre plot of land into a closed-loop, year-round food engine. And the best part? It's going to permanently slash your grocery bill. All right, let's just jump right in. Now think about this for a second. $12,000. According to the USDA, that's what the average family of four is dropping on groceries in a single year right now. I mean, we're talking over $1,000 a month. And you know what the craziest part of that is? A lot of folks spending this kind of money are sitting right on top of a full acre of productive land. To put that into perspective, an acre is actually more land than 90% of the farms that fed entire families for centuries. So why are modern homesteaders still bleeding cash at the supermarket? Well, it really boils down to this brilliant quote from our source material. That's not a garden problem, that's a design problem. Honestly, failing to produce enough food on your property, it's got absolutely nothing to do with bad soil or a terrible climate or even a tight budget. It is entirely about an inefficient layout. A bad layout just duplicates your effort, wastes your precious time, and leaves these massive, glaring gaps in your food production. So to fix that, here's our blueprint for today's explainer. We'll start with the layout problem, move into the closed loop strategy, check out the garden and forest, integrate livestock and ecosystems, lock it down with storage and perimeter planning, and finally, go over the big mistakes you need to avoid. All right, kicking things off with section 1, the 1 acre layout problem. So take a look at the scattered homestead approach on the left. You've probably seen this, right? It's what most people do. You throw a garden in one corner, squeeze a chicken coop in wherever it fits, maybe plant some random fruit trees. And then you've just got this massive chunk of property that's nothing but mowed grass. It does literally nothing but eat up your time and gas money. It's totally disconnected, leaving these huge gaps where you produce absolutely nothing and end up running back to the store. But contrast that with the right side, the zoned homestead. This is purposeful placement. It functions like a single, finely tuned machine that actually gives you continuous, free, year-round food. So how exactly do we get from scattered to zoned? That brings us to section 2, the closed-loop homestead strategy. To make this shift, we need to borrow a paradigm from ancient permaculture methods, specifically something called zone-based design. This is an agricultural strategy where you strategically place your most labor-intensive crops right up close to the house and push your perennial or forage elements out to the edges. The goal? Creating a self-feeding closed-loop system. And listen, this isn't just some hip new trend. This is literally how families survived for centuries before grocery stores or refrigerated trucks even existed. The idea is simple. Your garden feeds your animals feed your soil, and your soil feeds your garden. The whole shebang works together and nothing is wasted. Let's see how this actually builds across a theoretical 1 acre plot. Here's a rapid-fire overview of the 7 distinct zones we're going to establish. Pay attention to the careful spatial arrangement here. We start right at home, from 0 to 30 feet with the kitchen garden. Then we move outward to the food forest. Next, we integrate poultry, rabbits, and bees. And finally, we secure the whole harvest with preservation and the perimeter. Let's dig into each of these. Moving on to section 3, core food, focusing on your garden and forest. Okay, so we're starting our tour right at your back door. This is where your most crucial daily calories are grown. Zone 1 is your kitchen garden. The absolute key here is proximity. It literally has to sit within 30 feet of your house. Why? Because, well, human nature. If your salad greens are 200 feet away in the pouring rain, you're just not going to harvest them every day. By keeping it super close and using succession planting, planting a new row every couple of weeks from March to October, you guarantee yourself continuous daily veggies. You toss a simple glass cold frame over a raised bed, and you're pulling fresh spinach and arugula in the dead of January. In fact, our sources note you can pull over 200 pounds of food from just one 4x6 foot bed doing this. No way, right? But it's true. Step just beyond that, roughly 30 to 80 feet out, and you hit zone 2, the perennial food forest. Now, this is your high-calorie engine, and the beauty of it is that it practically runs on autopilot. You plant in vertical layers. So you've got your tall apple and pear trees forming the canopy, fig and mulberry trees right beneath them, berry bushes below that, and finally strawberries working as your ground cover. After the first couple of years, this setup requires almost zero maintenance. No tilling, no daily watering. Just one mature apple tree can drop 200 to 400 pounds of fruit a year. And what about the bruised windfall fruit that drops to the ground? Well, that doesn't go to waste either, which leads us perfectly into our next zones.
Section 4. Integrating livestock and ecosystems.
So this is where we weave in livestock and pollinators, and we're not treating them as separate hobbies, they are vital workers within our ecosystem. Zone 3 is your egg and poultry station, placed directly adjacent to that food forest. Check out this value, 600 to 900 bucks. Just putting 6 hens in this specific zone yields up to $900 worth of eggs a year compared to store prices. But remember, they're workers. They happily eat that windfall fruit from Zone 2 we just talked about, which keeps your feed costs insanely low. Plus, if you use a deep litter system in their run, twice a year you get to literally shovel out compost straight onto your garden beds. That's another 150 to 180 bucks in free fertilizer right there. And this setup brilliantly illustrates the magic of Zone 4, the rabbit and worm integration hub. Rabbits actually have the best feed-to-meat conversion ratio of any common livestock. We're talking 4 pounds of feed to 1 pound of meat. A single breeding trio will give you 120 to 180 pounds of meat a year in a super tiny footprint. But watch how this closed-loop engine works. Step 1. Rabbit manure is cold, meaning it won't burn your plants, so you let it drop directly into worm bins stationed below the cages. Step 2. The worms process it into hyper-rich vermicompost. Step 3. That black old feeds your garden. Step 4. The garden scraps go straight back to feeding the rabbits. See? You aren't managing separate, annoying chores anymore. You're just running one continuous, beautiful machine. Next up is Zone 5, the bee corridor. If you place just 2 hives right along the border between your food forest and your garden, it acts as a massive multiplier for your whole property. Sure, they'll give you 30 to 60 pounds of honey per hive, completely wiping out your need for store-bought sweeteners, but their real superpower? Pollination. By sticking them right in the flight path of your crops, studies show you can actually increase your fruit and vegetable yields by a whopping 30 to 50%. That's absolutely crucial. All right, Section 5, Storage and Perimeter Sustainability. Look, growing the food is only half the battle, right? We still have to survive the winter. That's where Zone 6 comes in, your preservation and storage station. Just look at this dramatic contrast. A standard homestead might still be shelling out over $1,000 a month on winter groceries because all their summer surplus just sat and rotted on the kitchen counter. But with Zone 6, your winter grocery bill plummets to like 40 bucks a month. For roughly $150 in setup costs, think a pressure canner, a dehydrator, maybe a buried trash can root cellar, you build this crucial bridge between your wild summer abundance and your dead of winter dinner table. And wrapping its arms around all of this is Zone 7, the perimeter forage and mulching. This is that outer boundary edge that, honestly, most people just completely ignore. But by planting fast-growing stuff like comfrey, mulberry, and moringa, you knock out 3 massive goals for under 30 bucks in startup costs. First, comfrey gives you a ton of biomass that you can just chop and drop as free mulch for the garden. Second, the leaves are fantastic high-protein feed for your chickens and rabbits. And third, these plants act as a living windbreak, totally protecting your inner, fragile zones from wind damage and moisture loss. Finally, Section 6, mistakes to avoid when starting out. Okay, before you run outside and enthusiastically start digging up your entire yard, let's cover the 4 major layout pitfalls that constantly derail new homesteaders. First, putting the garden too far from the house. Like we talked about, distance absolutely destroys your motivation for daily tending. Keep it close. Second, skipping preservation. Seriously, don't wait until you've got 50 pounds of tomatoes rotting on the counter to go buy a canner. Get Zone 6 set up early. Third, bad tree placement. Fruit trees need 6 to 8 hours of minimum sun, so don't plant them in the shadow of your barn. And lastly, trying to build all 7 zones in one single season. This is a classic rookie mistake, and it leads to instant burnout. You really have to pace yourself. The smartest strategy is just to start with Zone 1 and Zone 3, your kitchen garden and your chickens in year 1. Get those dialed in before adding anything else. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this question. Which zone are you going to set up first? By shifting your mindset from doing scattered, disconnected chores to running a zoned, closed-loop machine, you really can achieve true food independence on just a single acre. It's totally doable. So pick one specific zone, map it out, and take some action this weekend. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I seriously can't wait to see how you transform your property.